episode of Power Move Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs, and just all-around inspiring human beings. Not just focusing on their successes, but more important, shining a spotlight on the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, I'm so happy to have her on our show because she is, on one hand, she's extremely inspirational, but on the other hand, she's a cautionary tale. God gives us all gifts. And if you do not live in your purpose, if you do not use the gifts that God gave you for the reason he gave them to you in the first place, it could land you either dead or in jail.
That's right.
Our guest, Miss Jamila T. Davis, she is an author, an activist, an ex-con, ex-real estate mogul, and now she gives back to our community, trying to enrich, enhance, motivate, inspire, and just teach and keep people from traveling down the road that she traveled. Jamila, I'm so happy to have you on the show. Thank you for even granting us the time. I appreciate you, Miss Jamila T. Davis.
No problem. I'm so happy to be here. I've heard all about this show, and I'm excited. This is one of the shows where I'm excited about what's going on.
Jamila,
I'm happy to be here today.
I'm glad you're happy. I know you're off vacation. You're looking well rested. So I'm getting you in a good place because I want all of that energy that I've seen you on so many other interviews with.
Yes, you're going to have it all. It's all yours right now. Let's get into it.
Okay. So Jamila, I'm going to ask you a question because as I was reading up on you and just watching so many of your interviews, I noticed nobody ever asked you, what's the T stand for? Jamila T. Davis. Everybody just glosses over that. What's the T stand for?
That's a good question. It's Takia. Takia is my middle name, T-A-K-I-Y-A-H. So during my era, like it was like another era of black pride, right? Mm-hmm. Where folks was wearing dashikis and naming their children based on this little African book of names, right? And so my parents specifically sought after my name, which was it's actually Arabic. So Jamila means beautiful in Arabic. Takia, I'm not exactly sure what it means, but it's definitely in that good book. And mm-hmm. Davis is my last name.
Wonderful. Okay. Talk to me. You mentioned your parents. And, you know, from what I understand, you were raised by a two-parent household. That's not right. Something that many people who come from our community can say. What was your growing up like? What were your parents like? Did they have major influence on you, or were you rebellious from minute one?
No, I wasn't rebellious from minute one. Growing up as a kid, I desired to be like my parents. So therefore, I basically did the things that they wanted me to do. I did the things to please my parents. I became a straight A student because I wanted so bad for my parents to be proud of me. And my parents, they came from Kinston, North Carolina. That was like a small little town in North Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. And so they were poor. And they came to New York City during the time of migration to seek better opportunities for their family. And they got that. So they just gave us. I really didn't know life of the struggle. So for me, where I went left is I was intrigued by the ghetto. You know, it was something about the projects and the piss in the elevators that stimulated me. So, you know, me, it wasn't that I had bad parents. I had the greatest of parents. I grew up, you know, I went to a school in a predominantly Jewish area because my mother felt it was important for us to have the best education. However, I went to dance school on Saturdays. Actually, Prodigy, rest in peace, his grandmother, Bernice Johnson, had this studio, and we would go there every Saturday, and folks like Diana Ross's daughter and Ben Vereen was a teacher, taught classes to some of the alumni. It was crazy. So I had that experience and experience in the Black church. But it was important that I was diversified, and I did swimming and judo and karate and all kinds of stuff. They, you know, introduced us to the arts. So I was well balanced. However, it was something about that life in the fast lane. It was something about seeing the prostitutes and the hookers, and it was something about that thing that just lured me in. So my first boyfriend was a 16-year-old drug dealer from the 40 Housing Projects in Jamaica, Queens. And it went from me idolizing my parents and trying to be like them to me trying to be like the hustlers in the hood. So this good girl kind of went bad, so to speak.
Let me ask you something, and this is for anybody who's watching this who has children. You just spoke so highly of your mom and dad, and they're professionals in their own right. Mm-hmm. What could, somebody like myself who's a parent, or somebody out there who is raising young girls, young Black men, what could your parents have done differently?
Nothing. The only thing that they could have did was introduce me to me, meaning like, that's why I do the programs in the schools, right? Huh? I'm today what you call a credible messenger. When I speak to students, I have a different effect on them than the principal or than their parents, because they feel like their parents just don't want them to have fun. When I'm able to talk from my wounds and show them my scar, like, look, I did this right here, and here's the scar I got from it. I was away from my kids for a whole decade because I chose to live life in the fast lane. Now they want to talk to you. So what was it like in there? Mm-hmm. Nah, it wasn't good. Let me tell you about it. So it's like kids just kind of got to know from people who've been through it. And with kids, I feel like instead of telling them what to do, you got to give them options. You can say, hey, you do this, you get this result. You do that, you get that result. But kind of leave them feeling as though they have an option. But when you just tell them what you're going to do and tell them what it's going to be, because that's what my mother did. She told me that this was going to be it with this boy, and I'm not to mess with kids over there, and this is okay, lady, this is what I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to rebel against you and do what I want to do. And that's really the mindset of kids. Mm-hmm. Think about you as a kid. We wanted no more but to be grown, right? Yep. And independent. So I feel like you do best with children when you give them options, right? And you let their options dictate their outcomes. So kind of govern them in a loving way. But when they do something that's wrong, not judging them and throwing a book at them, you're like, okay, so this is what you decided to do. Now look at the consequence. And then have them make the choice that, you know what? I don't want these consequences anymore. I want this reward. So kind of instructing them and showing them and not telling them what to do and allowing them to speak to credible messengers and really get to see the true cautionary tales. I think that's what has the greatest impact.
You said something that just stood out to me. You said they could have introduced me to me. Mm-hmm. What does that mean exactly? I get all of giving the options and showing this could happen. If you take this road, there's a likelihood that that's going to happen. But introducing me to me.
I would have met me. If somebody would have come to me and say, Jamila, you keep playing with this right here. This is what it's going to be. And I'm not telling you because I think I know the answer. I'm telling you because I know the answer because I did that. See, that's another thing we do as parents. We want to hide our bad stuff. So we don't want to tell the kids what we've been through because we don't want them to see us in that light. Sometimes it's good to expose your wounds. So you be like, hey, yo, you know what? I tried that too. Look what happened to me. It's like, oh, my mother did that. So even with my kids, because I'm so open with them, they like, all right, nah, we not doing that. We not going where mommy just came from. That's crazy. So it's just exposing them to the true realities and not trying to sugarcoat stuff and not trying to be so perfect. Right? Our parents always want to, nah, I messed up too. It's okay. We mess up sometimes. But here's how you could do it better. Kids, when you keep it real with them, I feel like that you have a better chance for them to keep it real with you.
Great answer. You said you met this boy selling drugs. He's 16 years old. Were you looking for some type of acceptance in the street, or was it just pure, I was infatuated with this young man?
No, it wasn't just him. So first of all, it took me a long time before I had a boyfriend, right? I didn't feel pretty enough. In my era growing up, it was light-skinned girls with long hair. And those were my friends. So it was like my friends around me seemed to have all of the fly boys, and I didn't have a boyfriend. So then in that era, this is when the crack cocaine epidemic hit. and do like my 16-year-old boyfriend was making tens of thousands of dollars at 16. It was a whole different type of money. Mm-hmm. Money like folks ain't never really seen before. It was crazy, the amounts of money that they was making with the drug game. So a lot of my girlfriends had drug dealer boyfriends that had the BMWs, the Benzes, all of this stuff. And I saw them and I wanted in on that, right? So I chose to date these kind of guys. But after I got in and I saw that it was all like more than what it was cracked up to be, instead of me wanting to date them, I wanted to have the things that they had. Because I realized once I got next to them, they wasn't really smarter than me. Some I was smarter than them because I'm telling them how to go get their money and make more money. So then I was like, yo, forget trying to be the drug dealer's girlfriend. I'm going to be that chick that has all my own things and I'm going to get my own money and I'm going to make people want to be like me. And in essence, that's what I did.
Okay. So now you're not just infatuated with the streets, hanging out with drug dealers, dating drug dealers. You find yourself getting into the drug game.
Yes.
This is a parent's nightmare. How old are you at this time?
I did that by the time I turned 16. So I met him when I was 14. 2 years in the game, I learned the game. So when he going to cop, who he taking with him? I see how they cutting up. I see what they doing. I'm seeing the opportunity, right? So I'm like, all right, let me try that. But I really didn't like that whole crack cocaine thing because it was like, for me, it was something about what I saw it do to folks that I really wasn't so in on that. So I got into the weed business, and I had one of my boyfriends helped me get a pound of weed. I took it to North Carolina and I blew up off of it. Like that, what we sell in New York for a nickel was like $20 there, like a $20 bag. It was crazy. So the flip was just dumb. So I learned at a young age how to flip money. And I never understood at the time that I was gifted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that looked like, right? So I just had this thing in me, this knack for knowing how to make money and knowing how to make people want what I had. And I just went into it. Now imagine me with a mentor. Imagine me with somebody that really got money and was like, nah, look, Ma, you don't got, see, because the thing about a true hustler, you don't got to sell crack. You can sell socks.
There you go.
It's not about your product. It's about the way you market your product and you brand your product. But I didn't know that at the time, which brings me to my point. That's what I do now. For my life career, I am the founder of the VIP Online Academy. I'm also a part of a bunch of different community programs where we go in and we teach our young people how to make money now. And I tell them, baby, you don't have to scam. Here's what you do. This is how you make some real money. And this is the difference of the money you make this way. And this is the difference of the money you make that way. If you get this money this way, you can get it. And you could probably make a lot of it, but now you got to look over your head. You got to worry about the cops. You got to worry about being more successful than your friend that you think is your friend, but then is your frenemy and is going to turn you in at the end of the day. Then I get to talking to them about the folks that jumped on the stand on me. And they be like, okay, you know what? Miss Davis, we don't want that money. Tell us about how to get the other money. Then I bust that thing down. Okay, well, baby, this is what a corporation looks like. So we have young people who have not only incorporated, but we help them get their logo. We help them in branding and marketing. They learn all of the basics of how to build your brand. So we have now dozens of entrepreneurs that we've made out of students, and I'm proud of that work. And that's what I mean by talking to Jamila. Had Jamila spoken to the Jamila of today, that Jamila certainly wouldn't have went down the route that she took. There was an easier route to go through. And I didn't know about it because my parents was teaching me about civil servant jobs, and I ain't want that. So they telling me about take the tests and da-da-da and sign your life away for 30 years to make, I ain't want to do that. And I didn't want to sound cocky, but that wasn't what I was into. I wanted to make money a little bit more quicker because, it's an instant fix generation. Now, I don't promote instant fixes. However, I do tell people, if you're willing to work hard, and here's another platform and another way to do it besides your traditional 9-to-5.
I love it, Jamila. I love it. I want to go backwards for a second.
Yes.
Because you're doing so much great stuff now. We're going to get to this in the interview. You're in the streets. You're doing your thing. You're hustling. How many kids do you have?
2.
How were you when you had your first kids? Were you in the streets at the time?
Yeah, I definitely was. My son, I had him a week shy of my 19th birthday, and my daughter I had when I was 21.
Wow. So I'm assuming your support system, your parents played a big role in helping to raise them?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when I went to prison. They were, so like my kids are like my sister and my brother, because they grew up like that, because they had my parents who held them down. So they had a lot of the same nurturing that I had growing up. However, my parents got smarter at the way that they raised kids after, they made a couple mistakes. After you do things a couple of times, you learn different systems of doing things. So my son was very, very, very sheltered, but it was a good kind of sheltering. So my mother helped him tap into his gifts, and then she built a studio. My mother's a real estate broker. So in the bottom of her real estate office, she built my son a recording studio. So she got smart. She said, this is how I'm going to keep my grandson off the street. I'm going to find what he loves.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry to cut in. Go ahead.
I'm going to invest in that, and I'm going to push that. So my kids got a lot of tapping into their gifts and really cultivating that in-house instead of letting them just kind of go out of house and do what they wanted to do, so to speak.
Got you. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 2 older brothers.
Okay, good. And I was hoping it would be brothers. Did any of your brothers hit the streets before you?
Yeah, absolutely. My older brother, he also, that's who I idolized. Same like me. Like, we just had this thing. just crazy. He also kind of went the street route as well. He eventually came back, because we both did. And that's the thing about children. If you raise your children right, after they make, it's like the prodigal son. After they make enough decisions wrong, they're going to come back because they was taught the right way.
That's what people don't understand. It's biblical. The Bible says, train up a child. And if you train up a child in the way that they should go, they'll make their mistakes, but they will eventually come back, because that training, all that you poured into them, all that you sat down and helped them to see the right way, eventually, when their minds are mature enough or they made enough mistakes out there, they're going to come back, because that training never goes nowhere. They can suppress it over time, but eventually they'll always come back. Another question before I move on in your story. I know your parents played a major role in your life, especially, and we'll get to this, when you got locked up, helping to raise your children. Your kids' fathers, are they in the picture?
Yeah, they're in the picture. And I actually have 2 separate baby fathers. It's crazy. One is a CO, which, like, my son, to have had a mom in prison and a father as a CO, that was direct opposites. That was kind of crazy. And he was really an amazing father. And my other daughter's family is really good to her too. So I made 2 decent, choices as far as fathers are concerned. So they definitely played their role. However, the Davises probably have had the greatest impact, because my parents are just those hands-on parents, and they just do what they do.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a regular job? Because I know before getting into real estate, you were in the credit.
Yeah, I did. I used to work in the banks in the beginning of my life. I actually forged working papers so I could get this job in the bank. So one of my first jobs was at EAB Bank as a bulk representative. I went from that to a teller to a customer service representative pretty early in life, which is crazy that I later get convicted of bank fraud, because I went in and I learned the whole system of how the bank works, how credit works, because that's when I started my own credit repair agency. But I learned really early on that I felt like a workplace for me was a prison, because you had to be mandated there for a certain amount of hours, certain days you didn't want to go. And I didn't love what I do. I didn't get up every day loving what I did. And as an entrepreneur, I could say I loved what I did. Like, I enjoyed helping other people, doing my thing, working hard for me. So I just became an entrepreneur very early on in life. So my last real job, I think, was 18. And then after that, I became an entrepreneur. And it's so crazy that now I hadn't had another job since then until prison. And in prison, I was required to get a job inside the prison, unfortunately. But then fortunately, because I became the recreation clerk, so I had a high-level prison position. And then recently, after COVID hit, and I wasn't sure about the checks, that I was getting, I took on actually 2 jobs that I work on now, but I'm able to do them in a format where I don't feel,
Yep.
These are this is probably the first time Social Security taxes have come out. I'm almost non-existent in the Social Security office because I never really ever had a job other than entrepreneurship.
I love that you're speaking because our audience is primarily entrepreneurs and people who just want to succeed, like really climb the corporate ladder and do their thing in business. And even as you're talking, it resonates so much with me because I come up around the same time as you. And my grandfather and my family, they're from North Carolina. Interestingly enough, a small town you probably never heard of before.
What is it called?
In Burgaw, of all places.
Called what?
Burgaw, North Carolina.
And I haven't. I'm surprised because
it's the size of 3 city blocks.
Okay. What is it next to? What's the main town it's next to that I wouldn't know?
Wilmington.
Okay.
Wilmington.
My oldest brother is from Wilmington, so he would probably know Virgo.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember when I was coming up, I faced the same dilemma as you because all that was poured into me was, the test for this is coming up. Or a real man, you get a state job or a city job, you work 30, 35 years, and finally you can retire, and that's when you can live your life.
You retire and then you die.
Exactly. That's the way I was looking at it. I'm like, yo, who's even say I'm gonna make it that far? But everybody I see retiring, they dead 2-3 years after they retire. So it just didn't resonate with me. And it's interesting. And I'm so happy, even with the work that you're doing right now, you're showing our youth, you're showing this next generation, yeah, you can hit the streets. Entrepreneurship, it's a real thing.
Yes.
But if you use it wrong, you hit the streets and be your own, corner entrepreneur or moving weight, doing whatever you do. Or you could take that same skill set and put it into something legal. Might take you a little longer to get to the finish line, but you're still an entrepreneur.
But you're going to keep it. So that's the difference. And that's what I showed them. You can have I was a multimillionaire at 25 years old. And every single thing I earned and worked hard, because I had to work hard for that too.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
It got taken away. So it was like I never did it. Who wants to do that? Right? When you can work and keep what you earn and it just gets greater and greater and greater and greater. So that's the lessons that I'm able to show people, not just tell them, right? It's one thing to tell somebody something, but it's another thing to give them an actual factual, result. Like, this is what happened to me. So when they hear it from that standpoint, they be like, you know what, Miss Davis, you're right.
The Bible says, and people get this Bible verse wrong all the time. People typically quote, money is the root of all evil. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says the love of money, for the love of it.
Yeah.
And in your case, you're a multimillionaire by 25 years old. Kudos to you. Like really think about how gifted you are to make that kind of money, to seize the opportunities in front of you and do what you did. And then it all comes crumbling down. Can you speak to anybody right now who is on this path and they have a love of money, not a love of entrepreneurship, not a love of going out and doing something that can enhance the world, change somebody's life, but they're just chasing the money? Because I believe that's the downfall. That's where it all comes crumbling down, is the love of it. It's not.
I think that it's helping them. Okay, so it's mindset shift, right? Mm-hmm. Those people that have a love of money, why, right? It could have been, there's generally some kind of insecurity in that particular person, right? Because you should love yourself more than anything, right? And you should love yourself more than money. Because if you love yourself more than money, then you won't compromise your integrity to get money. You will let money chase you rather than you chase the money. So it starts with mindset shift, right? Why do you love money so much? What do you feel like that it's covering up or giving you that you haven't given to yourself? So it's doing that inner work, right, in you to figure out what are my morals? What are my values? What am I setting? What am I putting in the atmosphere? And it's nothing to like. There's nothing wrong with liking nice things. I love nice things. And I'm always going to continue to have nice things because I think that we were born to be kings and queens on this planet. However, I am not willing to risk my freedom. I'm not willing to risk my integrity, my morals, my values, or any of those things for money. It's the exact opposite. As I set the tone, as I dictate what it's going to be or how it's going to move, that's how the atmosphere in the universe is going to open up to me to give me more of what I'm looking for. So I feel like it's a mindset shift. It's about figuring out why do you lust and love money so much? What is it? And what are you missing inside of you that you're using money to replace?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to talk about you getting into this credit game. How did you get in the credit game? You're young. You're probably, 20 years old at that point?
Not even. So I got my first credit card when I was like 16 years old. When I lied on the application, it said I was 18. By the time I turned 18, I had at least 10 or 15 grand in credit. And then I messed my credit up, so I had to learn how to fix it because I messed it up. Then once I messed mine up and somebody else messed theirs up, I taught them how to fix theirs after I fixed mine. And then it just turned into a business, right? Because I was intrigued with credit. I wanted to, I first got my first credit card. How do I get the limit extended? What do I do? So I just kind of by trial and error created a system for credit, not even doing any research. It was just my experience. Again, I was that kid that threw whatever against the wall and whatever stuck, right? And that's how I got jammed up. Because there's a lot of the things I did, there was nothing wrong with it. It was the method that I chose to use to get it. And the reason why I chose the method I chose is because I didn't know anything else. You know, our people perish because of what? Lack of knowledge. So that's why it's so important to me to make sure that our kids have information. So you don't have to, look at Donald Trump, right? He paid $750 on his taxes in 2017 or 18. I just came. Most people, he's a crook. No, he just knew the law, right? So he navigated it to make it legal. And that's what we fail to do a lot of times with business because we don't know that we need to. Tax laws are in place, and he navigated and mastered the tax system. Do I think that it's fair? Probably not. But this is where the laws are. So what usually people do that are Caucasians, they learn the law and they learn how to master the law and make it work for them.
So while you were doing your credit business, was it on the up and up, or did you find a way to have a scam even within that?
But it wasn't. It wasn't what I know now. Now I could probably repair credit legally because I didn't know what the rules were. So in the beginning, I was scamming. But not scamming because I wanted to scam, just because I was doing what I knew how to do. And I really had a lack of information. So I processed the information that I had and made it work for me.
Got you. How did you move from credit to real estate? And even within your real estate, building that business, your life, you came into contact with rappers that many people know, celebrities, ball players. How do you transition from a girl who's doing credit to real estate to now having all of these different kind of clients?
So let's start here. My father and mother, I told you, came from Kinston, North Carolina, and they were dirt poor. My father used his city job to build his credit to get real estate. And one of the second homes he purchased was a 4-family property in East Flatbush, Brooklyn for my aunt, because his sister was renting these places and didn't have a good place to stay. So he wanted to create a home for her. So he bought this. I watched my father buy this 4-family home, and I watched his tenants pay off his mortgage. And then I watched him do it again with the 3-family home that he bought. And I saw the same cycle. So I learned at a very early age how real estate could actually translate into generational wealth. So not only did my father buy those properties, he bought his sister a home, his other sister a home in North Carolina. He bought his mother a home. He eventually ended up buying his other sister a home. So I just watched how my father was able to work a regular 9-to-5 job and become a multimillionaire through real estate. So I knew that I also wanted in. My father also helped me purchase my first property when I was 18, 19 years old. I owned a 3-family property in Brooklyn on Covert Street. Mm-hmm. And that from there, I kind of learned the game, and I actually sold that property. I bought it for like $200,000, and I sold it for close to $4 million, and I thought I did something. That property today is worth about $2 million if I would have held on to it, right?
Wow.
So I learned the power of how real estate could be the savings account for a lot of Black folks that don't really, earn that much. You could use this and pay it off, and it could be something that creates a legacy for your family. So that's how I got in. And then I just took it to another level. So again, I've kind of always been smart, learning, seeing what was around me. But then again, I didn't have the right method because no one ever trained me. I never had formal training. So I kind of just did what I knew how to do. And I cut some corners. And I took what you call some shortcuts, which ended up kind of ruining my life because that landed to a decade-plus sentence in federal prison. So, today, again, I try to arm people with information so that they don't have to take shortcuts and that they can win the right way now.
Okay. How exactly did you land in prison? What was your crime? And where in your story did this crime occur? Because from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem too bad. You're in credit, in using your words.
I was a Robin Hood. I was helping Black people get opportunities that they were normally closed out of. However, I wasn't doing it the right way. So it set me up for the kill. First of all, I became very, very, very influential and pretty wealthy quick. So that gains envy. So anybody listening, anytime you get something quick and you gain envy of folks are waiting for you to fall down. So people will set you up, mess you up because you didn't get it the right way. So it doesn't even make sense to do it that way, especially if you're in the limelight. It goes back to like the BMF case, right? Mm-hmm. They're probably some of the pioneers in our time of drug lords, but they were showing and flashy and everybody's seen. Eventually you setting yourself up if you're not doing things right and you being out there and being flashy. And I was super flashy. I had every car, all the spinning rims on cars when the spree wells was in, all the jivvy, all the dude. Like it was ridiculous. So people was watching me and I had a lot of envy. And then I was dealing with this mortgage broker who caught the attention of the feds because he was doing the wrong thing. And one thing led to another thing. And when they started watching me and they saw the cars and the influence and all the stuff and this young girl, they felt something was wrong. And when the feds come, even if something ain't wrong, if they keep fishing, they're going to find something. And that's what happened. Long story short, me taking shortcuts in the financing, the mortgage broker had to hook up at Lehman Brothers Bank. And so we was getting the mortgages through an inside connect, pushing them through when our people didn't actually qualify. So that was the crime. The crime was fake paperwork, fake pay stubs and W-2s and pushing people in places and spaces that they didn't really belong. And doing that was technically bank fraud. And so I eventually got convicted of conspiracy, 7 counts of conspiracy to bank fraud and bank fraud. I owned over $30 million worth of properties between Alpine and Saddle River, New Jersey, which is two of the most prominent places in New Jersey, where you got Diddy and Russell Simmons and Little Kim and Chris Rock and all kind of Black affluent people like that are buying these really, really high-end properties. And I had 9 of them at the age of 25. And long story short, when the feds came in and they saw how I was able to illegally obtain these properties, they came for them and they came for me. And I ended up being sentenced in 2008 to 151 months in federal prison, which equated to 12 and a half years. And out of that 12 and a half year sentence, I served 9 years behind bars and a year on house arrest. So it just wasn't worth it. Like the money I made, I could have made that legitimately. I could have worked at McDonald's, got a, degree, figured it out later and still made it and didn't have to go through that pain. So it just was stupid. And when I really look at it now, it was really dumb. And I really encourage people not to take shortcuts because they can really jam you up in the long run.
your story's so damn inspiring. It's tragic on one side, but it's really not. Sometimes you just got to trust the process. And God clearly needed you to go through what you went through to become the messenger, a credible messenger that you are today. I got to ask, because I'm listening to you, and you start off as this young, sweetheart girl from Queens, 2-parent household. You get hooked up with a boy, turned out into the streets. You're gifted. It's clear. There are people who work their entire life and they don't touch $1 million. By 25, you're a multimillionaire. You're a strategic thinker. You have the ability to recognize opportunity and not just recognize the opportunity, but execute on it. When you got locked up, you can go into the prison, and you in the feds. I'm assuming with your crime, you're in the feds. Where does the mind shift start for you? Because you can go in there and you're sitting around other people who worked in the financial industry. So you can literally go in there, okay, this is where I started and I made it to be a multimillionaire, but now I'm sitting in jail with people who, they weren't just multimillionaires, they're billionaires. They are government officials. Jail can become a master's class, if you will, in business. Where did your mind shift start to say, okay?
I didn't go there with the business part because I already had that. I just went with the spiritual part. So that's when I got to know God. I knew of him before from my parents and my grandparents and people talking about him. I really, really got acquainted with God. And that was through like reading my Bible and really learning the word and allowing him to use me. That's where I became an author of over a dozen books. I didn't even know I had the gift to be able to write. I began to write behind bars. I started a nonprofit organization behind bars. I finally sat down and got my college degrees. I got my associates, my bachelor's, my master's, and I started working on my PhD from behind bars. So it was just a mindset shift. And I realized that I used to do something called prostituting my anointing, taking the gifts and talents that God gave me and using them for what I wanted to use them for. So I kind of found my purpose, tapped into doing the things that I love, helping other people, and doing something that would actually leave a legacy, longevity, right? That would make my kids and my kids' proud. So again, that consisted of a mindset shift, realizing that I needed my higher power to survive, that no matter how smart I thought I was, no matter how gifted I thought I was nothing without God. So it was that revelation that woke me up to the truth. And then it also gave me time. I read hundreds of books. So then I later learned about business and credit and this and that. So now I know how to do things legitly. And I just share that information with folks today so that they can know how to do what I'm able to do and more, right? And just know that nothing is impossible. And that regardless how far or how short we fall in life, we can dust ourselves off and get back up again. And that's what my message is. That's what my life is.
Talk, Jamila. Talk that talk. No matter how far you fall in this life, you can always get right, dust yourself off, and get back at it.
That's it. And that's really the message that I'm sharing with you today. And Mr. Prez, my time today is crazy because I got like 2 or 3 other interview things that I got to get ready to do. I was just chosen by Charlemagne to do an Audible thing that he's doing, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So I'm actually going out to get ready to do that with Tamika Mallory shortly. But I'm really grateful that I was able to actually stop by and do this interview with you. I love how you think. I love how you have asked me the questions that you asked me that actually make me think again. Because a lot of times in life, a lot of the things we go through is patterns. And sometimes we're not conscious of the patterns. But if we can discover the patterns and we can master the patterns, we can master life. Okay, girl, I appreciate your time. Go do your thing. And just keep up the great work. I love your message. And, this platform is always here for you. That's what's up. Thank you so much for being on the platform. And you are a true power move maker. Speak to you soon. Thank you, Quick King. Bye-bye. Farewell.
What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love.